What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith, hanging out with Derek Baskin, actor,
What's up,
performer.
man?
What's going on?
Hey, man, just making it do what it do.
Oh, I like that. Ain't Too Proud is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah,
You must be really
man.
hyped about this new show.
I have waited probably about 20 years for this moment, and it's happening, and I'm very, very excited. I can't wait to share this show with New York and, you know, all the tourists who come and see
I
it.
mean, people love the Temptations.
I mean, how could you not?
How could you not, right?
They have hits after hits and decades of hits, you know, and it's just so much fun singing that music every night.
Definitely. So
Yeah.
that's the present day. I want to unpack your life a little bit here.
All right.
Let's go back.
It's a lot to unpack.
There's definitely. Let's do it. That's what we do here on the Sit Down.
All right, let's do it.
So tell me about your influences, because I'm sure the Temptations were part of that. But when you think about music and theater and acting, who were people you looked to as a young kid?
Yeah, well, I kind of grew up, my mother listened to a lot of opera. So like Leontine Price, Jesse Norman. My father is a jazz head, you know, so, you know, I'm a mixture between all of that. My singing style is kind of like that. My musical inspiration would be Stevie Wonder. You know,
That's a good one.
I mean, he's, you know, first of all, outside of the music, he's just a really good guy. You know, he
amazing
stands
guy
up-
to look to, right?
Yeah, you know, he stands up for what's right, and I try to do that in my life. And then musically, he's just sick, you know, and so I want to try to, sometimes I fashion myself after him. Yeah.
And it's funny because we were talking off camera.
Yeah.
It says on Wikipedia you were born in the Bronx, which is not true.
Man, the street cred I would have if I were born in the
Be pretty
Bronx,
nice, right?
that would be pretty nice.
That'd be
You know, I'm
pretty dope.
working in the city, born from the city. It's not true.
So you spent a lot of time in Japan, though.
I did,
So
yeah.
what was that experience like for you?
Man, first of all, I just miss it terribly. You know, it's
What part of
it's a
Japan?
beautiful country. It's like 2 hours west of Tokyo.
Okay.
On an Air Force base, Yokota Air Force Base. My father was in the Air Force. He's retired now. And I was there 8th grade and all of high school. And then I graduated high school and came back to the States and went to college.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it was just, it's a beautiful country because they're, you know, so far ahead of us with technology, but then they also really hold on to their traditions, you know? So you can go to a Japanese village and it's like the 1400s, you know? And then you can go to Tokyo and it's like the year 3000, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of like, you know, how they hold on to their traditions, but also like really strive forward to the future. It's really cool.
Can you speak any Japanese?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. Let's see. Watashi wa Deruku.
What does that mean?
I am Derek.
There you go. That's nice and simple. But see, that will give you some street cred here.
Maybe if I can, you know, I should brush back up on that.
It may come in handy. You never know.
Yeah, there's like a couple of Japanese grocery stores here in Midtown and also in Harlem that I frequent. And when I first would go there, you always get a bit of a side eye because they're like, "You're an American, you don't really know
Like, what are you doing
You know,
here,
what are you
right?
doing in here?
You
don't know."
start speaking the language a
Yeah,
little bit. Like, this
yeah.
guy knows what he's doing.
Or you like buy like a specific thing that you're like, oh, you
Right.
kind of know what you're doing.
Right. It's not just like the mainstream America
Yeah.
trying to be Japanese. It's like, no, this guy knows the culture.
Yeah.
That's cool. So take me back to the Japan experience, because growing up on a military base is
Yeah.
much different for a lot of different people. So
Oh, for sure.
what are kind of some of the things that stick out to you about the people you were with, the experiences, stuff like that?
You know, I will say like one of the benefits of growing up in the military is that, you know, you're around just so many different walks of life, different cultures. So it kind of makes you kind of like a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I moved to New York, it felt it felt like home because there's like so many different people here, but I grew up like that, you know?
Right. You had the melting pot already.
Yeah, I had the melting pot. And so it was like, you know, it wasn't predominantly black, it wasn't predominantly white, it was just, everyone just mixed together. And it kind of just makes you a little bit more compassionate about other people, makes you accepting of other cultures. And it's just a really cool way to grow up, you know?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
It just makes you more mature about your surroundings, you know?
I think so.
More aware of your surroundings as well.
I think so. And it's also, you know, pretty cool. Like if you're, you know, a young boy, the flight line goes usually on military bases. The flight line kind of like splits the base.
Yeah.
And so you have to like go across the flight line. There's
That's
always
cool.
jets flying. And so that was also like really cool.
I mean, you had a show all day then.
Oh, yeah. The USO show. Every day.
And now you're putting on a show for people.
I am. It's
I like
crazy
it.
how that, it's crazy how that worked out. It wasn't always the plan, but.
Yeah, so when did it become the plan for you?
So my degree is in biology. I was
Okay.
pre-med. I went to Hampton University,
Yep.
historically black college in Virginia. And I was studying, took my MCATs. I graduated college.
Wow, you had the whole medical plan
I
going.
did, man. I did. I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be a family doctor. I'm gonna be a brain surgeon. I had all that, and I went to stay with my grandfather. I was applying for medical schools and graduate schools, and I was working at TGI Fridays downtown St. Louis. And as I was applying to these schools, you just don't. Once you go to medical school, like that's it. You know
You're
what I
locked
mean?
in.
You're
Yeah.
locked in,
Yep.
and I didn't want to have any regrets. And so one day, my grandfather used to work for the post office, and he was a guard, so he was always gone the graveyard shift. And one night he was gone, and I was sitting kind of outside of myself, talking to myself, and I was saying, you really don't want to have any regrets. Is there anything you want to do before you go into this medical school? Because that's it.
Right.
And I've always wanted to make an album. I've always wanted to sing jingles and commercials. And so I was like, well, you can't really do that here.
St. Louis isn't exactly
St.
a
Louis is
hotbed
not-
for it. No.
Exactly. So I was like, well, where do you go, if you want to do that? And so I was like, let's just go to New York.
You just
So,
completely threw yourself out there.
I did. I really did. I was, I flew on, I want to say Continental Airlines, and I called, and I was like, I need a one-way ticket. And they were like, all right, it's cheaper for a round trip. I was like, I don't want, I'm not coming back. Give me a one-way.
Yeah.
They were like, fine, well, which airport do you want to fly into? And I didn't know, I honestly didn't know anything.
You
So
didn't
I
even
was
have
like,
a place to stay, did you?
I had no place to
Wow.
stay. I didn't know anyone here.
Wow.
And so I get, they were like, okay, well, it's the cheapest to fly to Newark. So I was like, all right, well, just give me one there.
And you didn't realize it was Jersey, right?
I had no idea, right? So I get to New Jersey, and I was like, I gotta figure out how to get to New York,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
don't know how to do that. So I'm certain someone's going there. So let's just follow this crowd and see what happens.
Wow. That's
That's
amazing.
exactly what I did. So I followed everyone. We get to baggage claim. I'm kind of trying to be friendly to the other passengers, because maybe someone will give me some information
Sure.
on how to get back to the city. Finally, I see another group of people walking toward this counter, and I was like, boom, there's a bus that takes me to New York. Let's just get
Let's
on the
hop
bus.
on and see what happens.
Right. So I get to the counter, and I was like, I want to go to New York. And this lady was probably the end of her shift, and she was completely over it and over me in 2 seconds. And she was like, okay, where you want to go? And I was like, Manhattan. And she was like, where in Manhattan do you want? And at this point, she was like, if you don't get
not
it
helping
together,
you.
get
Yeah.
out of my face. So I was like, what are my options? And she was like, you gotta be kidding me. She was just that's literally what she did. She's like, Grand Central, Port Authority,
Oh my gosh.
George Washington Bridge. And
Yep.
I was just like, Central, Grand Central. And so she was like, $12. And get on the bus.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
And so I
no, it
hopped
really
on the
is
bus,
crazy.
let me off at Grand Central. Had a big suitcase and a small suitcase and a briefcase.
What was the briefcase?
The briefcase, I was still holding on to medical school stuff.
Right,
You know what
just
I mean?
as the backup
Just
plan.
in case,
Yeah, just
you
in
know what
case.
I
If
mean?
this whole New York trip doesn't work out,
I had
maybe I'll
some
go back to
science
that.
papers in my
Yeah,
briefcase.
There you go.
And so I get to Grand Central Station, and it's not there anymore, but there used to be an office that you could check in and check out of
Right.
if you were getting on the bus.
Right.
And so I get there, and I was like, hey, I was wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I was like, I need a hotel. And the lady was like, all right, well, what kind of money you spending? I was like, it's my first night in New York City.
Let's do it big.
Let's do it big, $100. She was like, you cannot find
She's
anything
like, do you
for
know where you
$100.
are? This isn't
Right.
St. Louis anymore.
Because in St. Louis, I used to walk past the YMCA,
Yeah.
going to TGI Fridays where I worked, and my grandfather randomly told me, he's like, you can stay at a YMCA for $15 a night, right?
So
I
that was
like,
your perspective with all this
Exactly.
stuff, right?
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
thinking $100 will get me a really nice room.
Man,
And then
first night
you're not
in New
even
York.
walking into the freaking area there just to get to the check-in. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. You can't even get in the lobby for
no, you
$100
can't even get in the lobby. Yeah, wow.
So she was
So
like,
reality starts to set in a little
man,
bit.
it set in real quick. And she was like, well, then she told me she's like, there's a YMCA up the street on 47th and 3rd. And I was like, cool. Can I leave my bags here with you? And she was like, you you want to leave your bags with me? I was like, yeah, I'll be right back. You know, I'm just gonna go see
Oh,
him.
man.
She was like, you like sweet.
She's like, you
poor
got no
thing."
idea.
Like she's like, yes, baby, you can leave
Oh
your
my
bags with me.
gosh.
So,
You know, you think these stories are a reality, but here's your story,
yeah,
and it's
man.
happening.
It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I ended up staying at the Y for like 3 weeks, and then I didn't want to leave because I was like, you know, my perception at the time of New York, it was like this huge city,
Yeah.
and you know, I don't want to get killed or mugged, you know, but I didn't know there's it's a beautiful city, you
It
know,
really
it's
is.
really really beautiful people. And so after the Y, I bounced around a lot, way out off the last stop on the L train. Then I moved in a little bit further in to the last stop on the A train, where
Wow.
the A train turns into the C train.
Oh, wow.
Like Euclid Avenue.
Yeah.
I lived there for a while. Then I got my equity card, and then I put my stuff in storage and was out of the city for about a year. No, that's not about 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But you were
yeah.
just hustling around at that point.
Yeah, man, just figuring things out. You know, when I first got here, I still didn't really know I wanted to be an actor. You know what I mean? It wasn't kind of like a dream of mine. I loved music. You
Right.
know what I mean? So I wanted to sing. I wanted to make albums, maybe do concerts, stuff like that. The acting thing, I literally fell into it. You know?
So how'd you start?
So I got a transfer from my job, TGI Fridays in St. Louis,
To the city?
to the city.
Wow, they hooked you
The
up.
one that saw I got the hookup, man. I knew some folks. There's a TGI Fridays. It's still there. It's on 50th and 7th.
Yeah. I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. So I worked there for a few weeks, and so like now my new friends are. What I didn't know is, you know, a lot of waiters here. They're aspiring actors,
Right.
artists, whatever.
Right.
I didn't know that because
Right.
I'm coming from, you know, with my degree or whatever. So
Yeah, your medical background,
Yeah.
and then a TGI Fridays is just a TGI Fridays,
Yeah.
not a stepping stone to an acting career.
Not
in
at
St.
all.
Louis. Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. But
Yeah.
like my new friends were these aspiring actors,
Right.
and I told them I like to sing and whatnot, and so they were like, "Well, we're going to this audition. You know, you're singing. You should come." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so it was for Rent. Yeah. So it was my first audition. It was open call. You know,
Oh,
back
wow.
in the day, they used to have open calls like, I don't know, every 6 months,
Right.
and it'd be 4 blocks long, 4 people deep. The lines. You know, you're auditioning all day.
But a great experience for you right off the bat.
Great experience. Actually, my audition was on the news that night.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Wow.
really cool. And I didn't tell my job. I didn't tell my job.
Isn't that
It was
Derek
like, "We
from
saw
the
you."
midday shift
Yeah,
there?
I just like called out like I'm sick or something. I think that's what happened. They're like, "Well,
Wow.
we saw you on TV." I was
Oh
like,
my
"Oh my
gosh.
god, it's crazy." And so from there, like I kept getting callbacks, and I was like, I have no idea like what I'm being called back for. So
Wow.
you should
People
actually
just
maybe-
clearly saw some raw talent here, though.
They saw something. I don't know what they saw.
They just kept bringing you back.
Yeah, I just
Interesting.
kept getting callbacks. Yeah, so I went to go see the show. I won the lottery. You know, the first 2
Yep.
rows, you like pay like $20 or whatever.
And Rent's an amazing
Yeah.
show.
Oh man, it's a beautiful show. It's my first show I saw on Broadway.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been such a cool experience for you.
Yeah, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, like I can do that. Like I can do that.
That's when it connected for you?
That's when it connected. And so from there, I was like, well, you know, you should probably maybe take an acting class or like something.
Probably a good idea.
You know, you should like try to
Right.
pretend to be an actor
Yeah,
or something like
totally.
that. So for the longest time, I would go to Barnes and Noble and read acting books.
Oh, wow.
I would just sit there and read.
So what'd you read that inspired you?
There is a book called The Artist's Way, which is a really, really good book for actually more than just actors. Like, you know, Wall Street guys use it, scientists use it, doctors or whatever. It's a book that kind of just unblocks you as a person to allow, you know, the kind of negative voices that we say to each other, that we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
It kind of allows you to not listen to those voices and to listen to the voices that affirm, you know, who you are as an actor or as an artist or as a whatever you are, whatever vocation you are. And so I did that for a while and kind of just unblocked some things for me. I learned about like, you know, basics that you probably would learn in, you know, if you went to school for acting. Like,
Right, but you had to teach yourself at that point.
Yeah, I'm self-taught, you
Yeah.
know, so for the most part. I did take, I took an improv class. My first acting class was
Improv.
improv.
And that's a whole different experience right there.
Yeah, but it kind of like got me used to kind of like thinking on your feet.
Right, being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you know?
and also staying in the moment. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times with actors, some of the pitfalls one of the pitfalls we fall into is not staying in the moment. Like, I know if I do it this way, the audience will do this reaction. And so improv tells you to stay in the moment. And I think any really good actor will always stay in their truth. And so it was really cool. Taking out an improv class. The studio doesn't exist anymore. The studio it's a barbershop now.
What part of the city?
It's in Midtown. It's on 39th and 8th.
Okay.
It's like it was upstairs. It's this black box, and this guy, I don't even remember his name, but I found his name in the back of like a
phone book.
Backstage.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was advertising.
And now it's gone.
And it's gone.
So if we were to come in 2019, it would be a totally different experience. If you
Oh
were coming
man,
in,
I mean,
imagine?
I don't know if I would have made the same choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot different.
A lot different. Yeah, everything's digital now.
I know.
And yeah, back in the day, man. There's no
You're just
digital.
this innocent kid from St. Louis asking for a place to stay. Just
With
wanted
my
to-
creased khakis.
So this is an amazing story. I'm loving this right now.
Yeah.
So you're here in this moment where you're just immersing yourself
Yeah.
with the arts. How do you get that first big break and really make this a career, not just like, hey, I want to sing and do this kind of stuff? You know, how does it change for you?
All right, so from that class, that improv class, I met this girl, and I was telling her how I was tired of working at TGI Fridays, and she was like, well, my friend is a booker for a catering company. Why don't you come in? You know, he's like my roommate. I'll introduce you. He'll get you a job. It was for Cipriani's.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so I met him that day. I started working the next day where I met this other girl who had this National Dunkin' Donuts commercial.
There you
So
go.
I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing here?
How did you make this happen?
Yeah. I was like, I saw you on TV. Like, how'd you do that? And she was like, my agent submitted me. Do you want to meet her? And I was like, yeah, sure. She introduces me to my first agent.
Oh, wow.
So the Winter Garden, what's going there now? Beetlejuice is going there now. So there used to be a passport place, Kodak passport place. I went to Kodak, I got a passport picture taken, I blew it up. My first headshot.
That's incredible.
It was,
Wow.
it was. So I blew up a passport picture. I made up a bunch of.
Did you put any credits on there? Or
Yeah,
anything?
and they were just all lies. Just because I hadn't done anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
But I guess it was believable enough to get you through the door.
I had like sang some stuff in college, and I had done some stuff in high school, like with the choir that I kind of just
You
made
doctored those up a
into
little
a
bit.
show. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I played Chubby Checker in a 60s review or something like that. It's actually
They're
really
just like,
never
oh,
happened.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it looks good here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I sing for her, and after I sang, she was like, well, this is a lie, but...
She called it right away?
Oh, she called it.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd seen
Yeah.
enough of those
I
up,
mean, she's a legit agent.
Right. You're not going to BS a real agent.
Exactly.
Like
She goes, but you have something, and I would love to work with you. And she actually got me my first 2 Broadway shows. She did. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't overnight, but she stuck with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you think about your first Broadway experience,
Yeah.
what do you still remember about it today?
I remember just like how excited I was, The first show I did was called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And there were 9 people in the cast. 7 of us were having their Broadway debut. And so just to be around a bunch of kids who, we didn't know anything. But at the time, we were the hot show because it was like a quirky show. And I just remember the energy around it, the energy from the community, like our acting community was like, they welcomed us and they were like, who are these kids? Come over and, do your thing. And we're like, cool, thanks, It was just a really, really cool experience and I was scared, man.
I bet you were.
I didn't know what I was doing, I had no idea. But I wouldn't have traded it. And it was a really great learning experience. I got to work with James Lapine, who, he wrote Into the Woods, that movie with Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
But he wrote it when it was a
when
musical.
it was a play, yeah.
And, Bill Finn, who is, just a tremendous composer. This is my first time out the gate working with these juggernaut musical theater guys.
Yeah, good people to be around.
Really, really good people. And they kind of shepherded us You know, they were like, okay, you guys don't know what you're doing, so
Right. We'll help you out here. We're gonna rein you in a little bit.
yeah. And so it was just a really, really, really cool experience. My dressing room mate was Jesse Ferguson. He's
really?
on Modern Family.
Yeah.
So it's some really good people to like share that experience with.
No
Although
doubt.
he was a vet at that point, because he had done, I want to say, On the Town.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Gotcha. But it's just funny how different people you guys cross at different points in your career.
Yeah.
You know, even like the stuff you've done TV and movie wise. You know, you've crossed
Yeah.
paths with a lot of interesting people. So
Yeah.
you know, when you think about the people you've worked with on that side of things, who's really inspired you or impacted you in a big way?
Well, I will have to say that my friend Josh Gad, we worked together in Spelling Bee. He replaced one of the guys. I put him in the show. We kind of kept in touch, and then he kind of just blew up, right? And years later, I was auditioning for this movie called Marshall. And so my agents send me this breakdown. Breakdown is like character description.
Right.
And they tell you who's like attached to the movie. And so you see Chadwick Boseman. And I was like, Josh Gad. I was like, Josh Gad.
You're like, Josh, are I putting the play?
So like before I went in, I was like, yo, Josh, I'm going in to play your best friend. Like, I hope I get it.
This is
He's
too
like, I hope you-"
perfect.
Yeah. And I actually ended up getting it. It was really cool.
Right.
And so like working with someone who's like a friend, you know, and you've seen him like rise through the ranks. You've seen him, you know, he has his own production company and all that stuff. It's just really cool to see someone that you can say like, I knew you when no one else knew you.
Right.
You know, and it's really cool to watch, you know, watch what he's doing.
Definitely, and it's just a great story of persistence, you know, whether it's his story or your story. And think about your story. You went through all of this, and here you are in this perfect moment with Ain't Too Proud. And you get to shine, and you get to be somebody that is still living today and having a huge impact. So what has this whole experience been like for you when you got the part to learning about Otis to where you are now?
Yeah, well, the funny thing was I honestly didn't want the part.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I was trying to get out of musical theater. So
you didn't want to be pigeonholed in that?
Well, not
or you just were kind of tired.
I was just tired of musical theater. I
gotcha.
I had a good string of you know what I mean? I was starting to book like TV shows and movies, and so I was like, you know, let's like
see where this goes.
Let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
You know, I was at that point. I want to say it was on season 2 of Difficult People.
Right, and that was starting to blow up.
Yeah. So I was like, well, let's
keep going with it.
Far better.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too.
And
TV
they have
money
craft services.
and craft services.
You know,
game changer.
Complete game changer. Craft services is a complete game changer. So I was like, I don't necessarily want to go back to musical theater. I know how hard it can be.
Right.
But the funny thing was I was also doing like a 2-week workshop of another show that's actually on Broadway right now. So I was like, I'll just stick with this one. I don't necessarily have to audition for this. My agent was like, well, I think this role might be the lead. And you've never done that.
Yeah.
And I was like the lead? Yeah. He was like, yeah. I was like, all right. You know, I was like, you twisted my arm. Let's go in. So they sent me the audition material. It's 9 pages of monologues. And I was like, I don't want to do all that.
That's a lot. Yeah.
You know, and so I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I go in, I meet with the producers. I had worked with Des McAnuff 10 years prior on a Alice in Wonderland musical. They were trying to develop this Alice in Wonderland musical. I had worked with the choreographer Sergio Trujillo and his co-choreographer Edgar Godino on Memphis.
Okay.
So I knew those guys. Like I knew them, and they knew my work.
Right. Relationships. It all comes
exactly.
back to that.
Yeah. I didn't know the book writer Dominique Morisseau. I had met her in passing. Oddly enough, a couple of years on the corner at Williamstown, like Williamstown Theater Festival.
Wow.
She was there doing a show called, she was doing a reading of a show called Paradise Blue that actually ended up being put up at the Signature Theater last year.
Wow, that's a small world.
Yeah. So I go into this room, sing Stand By Me, and then I just proceeded to go through 9 pages.
That's a long audition.
Yeah. And so I finished, and it's like, okay, can we go back? I was like, you want to like go back?
Man.
And but from that moment, I took a meeting with Des after I was hired, and he was like, we knew from that moment you had what we were looking for to portray this guy.
Which was what?
A bit of, this musical is kind of like, for my character, a memory play, right? So I'm the last living Temptation, right? And I get to tell the story.
That's
Essentially,
cool.
I'm doing two shows. I have one show straight to the audience, and then I go back into the 50s, and then we go chronologically
Going through it.
Present day.
I gotcha.
So I'm doing two shows, and you need to have someone who's can kind of remember with fondness, but also a bit of melancholy of some of the things that you have gone through.
Right.
And I think honestly that day I was a bit sad.
Yeah.
I was.
It was a good day for you to audition.
It was, yeah. And so I think some of that heart kind of leaked through. I want to say I was actually trying to hide that day. And he was like, I saw a bit of sadness
and
in
it just
you.
poured out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was like, I knew that's what I need for this character. And it's very important for you to actually feel for him as you go through the show. He asks questions that, all of us will answer at some point. You know what I mean? So like one of the questions he asks is, are the decisions that you're making as, I'll use myself like as an artist, like are the choices that you have made to get where you are, was it worth it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's a huge question that we ask, that Otis asks the audience. And then he goes through the show. He is the founder of the Temptations.
Right.
And so he goes through.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He holds it all together, and his vision is that, success for this group. Like that's what he wants, and he will do anything that he can to make sure that this group is as successful as possible. And so, there are some decisions that had to be made that were not the easiest choices. And I think sometimes this show will allow you to parallel your life to the show. Do you know what I mean?
Right. You think about what you maybe had to sacrifice for certain things in your life.
For sure. Yeah. I think about it for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I were a doctor at this point, I'd been married with kids, like being a dog for sure.
Yeah. And now you're thinking like, I'm still trying to build out my career. It's very difficult to be in a relationship or have family and kids, because it's just so helter-skelter. It's all over the place.
It's feast or famine. You know what I mean? And right now, thank God it's feast. But,
but you've been through plenty of times with famine.
Plenty of famine, and it's hard to raise a family like that. Right. You know what I mean? Unless you have to have a very understanding wife or partner that's able to, ebb and flow with you through life like that. And so, but this show, it asks these tough questions. And it was really cool actually really meeting Otis.
Yeah,
like for the
tell me
first
about
time.
that, because he's obviously a fascinating guy, but what did you learn about him from meeting him?
Yeah, well, when someone tells you you're playing the last living member of this iconic group, the first thing is like fear.
Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah. It's like these are giants.
Right.
In
and
music.
he's still alive too. So he's gonna critique you.
Exactly. It's
a huge mantle to bear.
It is, but when you meet him and you just fall in love with the man. You know what I mean? And I started to see how I related to him as a man, and then I started to see how I related to him as an artist, and that took the fear away. I was like, this guy gets me. Like, I am actually this guy.
Wow.
At this point in my life, you know what I mean? And it made it much easier to play. Cause like I get it, cause I get
lived it.
Yeah, I'm actually living it.
Yeah.
So, I felt no pressure. And then he's just so unassuming. I mean, he's a flashy guy. You meet him, he dresses
all decked out still
every day to the
you
nines.
kind of have to be, right?
I mean, he's Otis Williams.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
Yep.
But he is the most humble individual. He's the most appreciative of what we're doing for him, and how we're honoring the Temptations. Like he's he called me actually yesterday, because he'll call every once in a while just to check in on us and see how we're doing. I was like, where you at? And I was like, he's like, oh, I'm just at home, just hanging at home. I'm like, Otis was just hanging at home.
Thinking about me.
Right, thinking about me. Yeah, but he's just like the sweetest gentleman. he has this wealth of knowledge that he is completely open to sharing, because he knows that if there's only some things that you can learn by reading the script. You know what I mean? You have this living, encyclopedia of experiences.
Talk to the guy, soak that in for as much as you can.
And actually, I learned more from sitting with him than I could have ever learned by reading the script.
Yeah, or watching videos of him or anything like that.
Yeah. I read his book, and I watched, there was a movie maybe 20 years ago about the Temptations. Great movie, it's a TV movie. I watched that. But I can sit face to face with the guy who I'm playing.
He can call you up on the phone.
Randomly. And I still kind of laugh to myself when he calls.
It's surreal.
I'm just like, this is crazy. I was coming from the gym yesterday, and I pick up my phone. I was like, Otis Williams is ridiculous. Yeah.
So when people check this out, what do you want them to walk away thinking? I mean, there's a lot to think about with Temptations, but you kind of hit on this melancholy element to it. So what should people walk away thinking about it?
Well, you're first going to think about this beautiful music. You're going to think about the narrative that this music paints of the 50s and the 60s. You're going to see the parallels between the 50s and the 60s and today, which is not always a great thing. When you think about race relations, you think about, economically what was going on and how that's still happening.
Right.
But you're also going to come away thinking just where, for the older generation, where they were when they first heard it. And that, for me, is it's just such a blessing to see. Like my brother-in-law's mother came to see the show, and afterwards she was like talking to me about, I had a crush on, so, and I'm looking at her, and she looks like she's 17.
It takes you right back.
It took her right back. And to see that, it makes me want to do it again. You know what I mean? Because it's not an easy show, No. For me, I don't leave the stage. I'm in every scene of the show.
Wow.
And I don't, you don't necessarily want to do that. You kind of want to rest a little bit. You know what I mean?
Of course you do, yeah.
But, it makes the work that I do, it makes it worth it. You know what I mean? Seeing someone say, yeah, thank you for telling this story. I remember it takes me back. And then for the younger audiences, it's a great education tool of a time that they know nothing about. I'm too young to know about it as well, but you realize all the boy bands and the boy groups that you're listening to now, these are the shoulders that they're standing on.
Right, these are the OGs.
These are the OGs, you know what I mean? And so it's just really cool to see the appreciation from the younger generations of this music. Yeah, so you'll walk away with all that.
All right, so when can people check it out? Let them know.
Hey, first previews, February 28th.
It's coming.
It's coming, and it's coming real quick. You can get your tickets on Ticketmaster.com. You can also just go to our website, ain'ttooproudthemusical.com.
All right, there you have it.
Yeah.
It's Derek Baskin. Absolute pleasure, man.
Pleasure's mine.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody. See you next time here on The Sit Down.